Did you know what they did to me? Did you know what he said to me? Did you know how he scratched my car? Did you know how he refused to pay rent? Do you know how he came back and he came to my house, he lived in my house for many months, never paid rent, never contributed, and he left carrying rumors about me? For example, if you close the door really badly, when you come back to open it again, it would be really difficult to open. Some doors may not open anymore. And we are not talking about doors, we are talking about people, human beings. In the relationships that you have, especially for the ones that you want to cut off entirely, you may want to close it in a way that if you need it in the future, it would be okay to open it again. If you choose to say, I never want to have anything to do with you ever in my life, and you push a person away, you may need that person again in the future. It's not, and it may be a need that you really should get, but because you pushed them away wrongly, they may never want to help you anymore. And it's not just about help, it's just what I would recommend. If you're cutting a person off, do it nicely. But let's look at scenarios, let's look at instances. Why are we saying this? Why would that really matter? Let's look at a scenario. If you're abused when you're younger by a parent, you're traumatized, you were helpless when you were much younger, you couldn't defend yourself, and you were abused in whatever way. Depending on the level of abuse, you may want to cut that person off, report it to the police, get that person jailed up, and never see daylight for the rest of their lives. Possibly. At what point does forgiveness stop? When should forgiveness stop? How far should we go? How far should we go with forgiveness? Should we choose to forgive? Does forgiveness mean that there should be no consequence? Should it mean that there should be no repercussion at all? Should it be that we put ourselves back in that situation where we get hurt again? If you're abused, try and get away from the abuser. Do not put yourself in a situation that would get you abused again. Let's say it's a verbal abuse, and whenever you guys talk about money, you're always put in a situation that you're always reminded, did I not do this for you? Did I not do that for you? And you're turned into a wallet. You've been accused, and you've been so put down, and you've been so guilt-tripped to become their wallet, and you feel so abused. And you've been used to pay all their debts, and you get no appreciation in return, and you feel so abused, and you want to cut off everything. Maybe you could say, I wouldn't want to talk by calls anymore. I do not really feel comfortable. You could send me a text, or you could send me an email. I'll try to respond, but I do not really feel comfortable doing this anymore. Do not leave a person hanging. Do not do not just put it out there without explaining why. I wouldn't want to pick up your calls anymore, because whenever you call me, you're using me like a wallet. There is a person who said, give people 3 chances, and after that, you can cut off. So it's not that when a person calls you to use you like a wallet, you say, that's all, not doing this anymore, not doing this any longer, never talk to me. That's not how it works. You can say, I understand that you're going through this, but I wouldn't want to be put in this kind of situation. Please do not do this again. And you give them a warning. Another time, maybe a warning. Maybe the 3rd time, you cut them off. Not cutting off in a way that there'll be no way to reconnect again, because that's what we're dealing with now. You could set boundaries and say, if this is what you need, I can help you with it. But as for these other needs that you have, I cannot help you with it. If you're going to call me to use me like a wallet, I wouldn't want that. And you could You can set boundaries for yourself and not put yourself in that kind of situation. But that's on the side, that's the low level kind of abuse, so to speak. But for situations where a woman was abused or there, there was a case of violence, do not live in the same house anymore. Some people are, some people choose to go back and live in the place where they are traumatized, abused. Because where else? Where else would they live? No friend to take up them. They have no one to know where to squat. They have no other job, and this is the only place closest to their job. There is no friend who would let them live in their own house, who would feed me, who would house me, who would take care of me, who would listen to me, who would listen to my problems, etc. Those may be reasons that you may formulate in your mind and try to get back into that situation. Maybe we're trying to get ourselves away from that situation that is causing the trauma, that is causing the abuse. But after leaving that kind of situation, how do we detach from that situation? How do we get away from it? How do we close that door so that it doesn't come back to bother us? But in a way that if the person on the other side of the door changes, that there is no way to reconnect. Human beings change, but change is not always what will happen. Some people never change. I've heard the news about people who were convicted and they were thought to have changed, but when they're released into society, they go ahead to commit even worse crimes. They go ahead to damage the life of another person. If you found someone stealing from you and you say, I've forgiven you, but you cannot work in my company anymore. I cannot let you handle cash anymore. I cannot trust you in that regard anymore. If it's an employee, you could fire them. You could tell them, sorry, your employment here is terminated. But how about when it's a spouse? How about when it's a loved one? How about when it's your wife, your husband? What do? Do you tell them I cannot be your husband anymore because you overspent, you went over the budget, or you took my money? Well, you two are married. His money is your money. Your money is his own money as well. That is the recommended arrangement because a husband and wife are one person. So the husband does a similar thing to what that employee did to his manager. The wife shouldn't just get up and say, this is the end, we cannot be married anymore. But that may be me speaking on the surface. What if he took the children's funds, school tuition fee funds, and gambled it away, spent all the money, and now the children cannot go back to school because there is no money to pay their tuition fees. And he took a loan on the house, $1 million, and blew it all. Does the woman go ahead to divorce him? For the first step, it may not be the initial path you want to take. You may go ahead to say, I know that you're in a tough situation right now, and I'm not willing to trust you to manage money anymore in the future. I would like to open up my own bank account to do things my own way until you've proven to have overcome this situation. I know you have a gambling problem. I know you have a problem with managing money. I cannot really trust you with this anymore. If there is no threat of violence, maybe you may choose to continue to live together in the same house. But if there is a threat of violence, you may choose to live in a different location with the kids so that things can be normal. This way, you're not shutting the door and saying that I never want to see you again, but you're giving an opportunity for him to change and turn his life around and come back. There are different severities of offenses, and depending on the offense, you may want to close the door in a certain way. What does a judge do to a criminal who has committed a really heavy offense? They're put in prison and not allowed to see the outside of the prison for the rest of their life, maybe imprisoned for life. But if they're imprisoned, if they committed a little offense, maybe they ran through 100 street lights, they're not giving life imprisonment. Maybe they're given a fine that they need to pay. There's a price to pay for those kind of offenses. But looking at your friend group, you have some friends, and you notice that there is one who has been spreading misinformation about you, telling people, have you heard of him? This is what he does. This is what he's doing. He has been doing this. Do you know where he lives? Do you know what his mother does? Do you know what his dad does? They do this, they do that. He defamed you and put you in a really bad spot. You may say to him, I heard that this is what you've been saying to me. And why are you doing this to me? And he says, people rarely say, I did it because I'm really wicked and I really wanted to get fun out of it. But he may deny and say, I never said that. Who told you I said that? And maybe he may say that someone else told him that and he thought it was true. So that's why he began to say the same thing to other people. And you say to him, why didn't you confirm from me? I thought we were friends. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you inform me? I thought you wouldn't, maybe he says, I thought you wouldn't want to hear it. I thought I could just tell other people about it just to warn them. So now you've decided it is the end of the friendship. I do not want to have anything to do with this person. You could say to him, you've proven to not be a good friend to me. I wouldn't want to be so close to you that you would hear my secret, or that you would not hear my secret. He would jump into a what do you call it? You jump around and say, finally, I found out and I know that you have been this kind of person. You can say to him, I wouldn't want this kind of friend that cannot be trusted with information to be around me anymore. But if you change, if in the near future you prove to be otherwise what you've proven today, I would want you to be friends with me again. But as of now, I wouldn't want to be in this kind of situation anymore. It could be one way to put it, so that if he truly changes and comes back, that may be fine. I wonder if that ever happens often. A person putting down his ego to come back and say, I was wrong, and becoming friends again. But maybe that may be the end of the friendship, and you may never be friends again. But if he changes and chooses to come back to be friends, there is still opportunity because you gave him an option to come back. People may change, situations may change. We may or may not put down our ego, because a lot of unforgiveness is really connected to ego. So when you close some of these doors, close it in a way that you may give the other person an opportunity to come back. There is a statement that advises not to repay evil with evil. If someone does you evil, you may repay with good. If you're seeking for revenge, do not seek for revenge by yourself, but you may go through the path of the law. That is especially if you're not Christian. For Christians are recommended to not take their brothers to court. But if it's a court you need, let it be the court of the church. There are leaders in the church that can handle the case. There are legal proceedings that happen within the church. So the concept in Christianity is that you shouldn't let unbelievers judge the case of believers, because they do not believe the same thing we believe. They do not have the same standards we have. So they may be judging you on a completely different standard. Say, for example, you're in a court case in an ungodly country, and in that country, parents are not allowed to raise their voices on their children to correct them for the evil that they have done. No, I'm not speaking of verbal abuse. I'm speaking of correction. Stop that, don't do this, come back at this time, etc. Parents are not allowed to do such in that country. And the parents are taken to court. The legal system is by the standards of the world, but in Christianity, we are allowed to actually correct our children. That's the difference between a court case between believers and one that are not believers. You may choose to pursue it with law and get the proceedings done, and let the person be judged by the law. If you broke into your home and stole something, if a stranger or whoever breaks into your home and steals something, you may submit a case to court and get him tried and found guilty and put in prison. But for you to take him and lay all the full weight of judgment by yourself, maybe lock him in your basement and let him not see sunlight because you think your basement is the prison now. Nah, you did the wrong thing. Hand him over to the cops. So if if situations happen in your life, maybe you were abused, you're a daughter, and your mother spoke to you some way when you were much younger, and she said, you'll never amount to anything in life. You'll never find anyone good to get married to. No one good will marry you. You will never have kids. You'll never amount to nothing. I am the ceiling. The way I am is the way you ever be. Your father divorced me, and you will not find someone who will love you. Even if someone finds you and loves you, they will divorce you on the second year because that's when your father divorced me. And she kind of imprints the hatred of men onto your mind. And that's all you know. You've grown up, you've tried to change, but these things are imprinted in your mind. You do not like her at all. You're finding ways to cut her off. She calls you from time to time and tells you that she's sick and you're not taking care of her, but you have this hatred in your heart. You don't want to hear from her anymore. You can say to her mother, please, I'm still healing. I may not want to pick up your calls anymore until I have fully healed. I know this may break her heart, but you know your mother, you know how you can speak to her in a way that she would understand. Or you could say, I could choose to come around and visit you from time to time, but please, what you said to me hurt me. This is how you said it, and this is how it hurts. There's a high chance that she would say, she would deny. There is this case, there is this way that parents say that something did not happen that actually happened, and get you to doubt your mind, to doubt your memories. But you say to her, this is what you did, and I do not really feel comfortable living here with you. I really want time to heal. Do not let your healing last forever. Try and heal and be reconnected with your mother. People are fallible. We are not all perfect. Give people chances. Do not just close doors and don't want people to talk to you anymore. When you're closing the door, let there be an opportunity for repentance. If someone comes back and says, I'm sorry, maybe forgive and still have your protection on you. If you find out that someone tried to poison you, maybe don't eat from them again, even after you've forgiven them, for the sake of your life. You survived the first poison. Even if he comes back and says, I'm so sorry, here is another pot of porridge, or a pot of beans, or a loaf of bread. Have something to eat. It's quite nice. I would recommend do not eat. So you're closing that door of not taking from their hand anymore, but you harbor no hatred. So closing the door a certain way and not closing it shut and making a complete wall around it that it can never be opened again might be required, but it doesn't mean that you would harbor hatred in your heart. You could choose to forgive and not, even when you remember the person's name, when you hear the person's name or see the person's picture or see the person's face, it doesn't trigger hatred in your heart. Maybe it may trigger pity and trigger some memories, but let it not be hatred. That is what I mean by closing the door a certain way, not making it permanent. It doesn't mean that you should take poison from a person who tried to poison you before. It's a smart thing to do. If you're verbally abused by a mother and she's proven not to ever change, and whenever you come around, you feel so helpless whenever she speaks. She berates you and makes you look like nothing, feel like nothing. The way she speaks about your mother, about your husband, your children, your job, where you're living, etc. You may choose to say to her, please, this is what you're doing and I do not want this. I would like to talk in this direction, and she still doesn't want to change. You may You know what boundaries you would set. You know what kind of situation you would create so that that doesn't happen anymore. Do not seek another person's destruction. And hopefully, you can also escape the destruction that other people have sought for you. But when you escape, it doesn't mean that you should put yourself back into their hands and let them do it again. Interesting.